In the summer of 2008, a group of scientists at the University of Texas announced a major discovery. They found that the majority of Africans and Black Americans have a genetic variation that makes us 40% more likely to get HIV.
What it does immediately is help to understand why is this so bad in African and African American populations. I mean, that's really one of the first and immediate things that it addresses. Why is the burden so heavy? And as people look to answer that question, sometimes they prematurely perhaps have jumped to conclusions that all of the factors may be related to behavior.
The scientists say we developed this genetic variation over thousands of years to help us fight off malaria. It happened the same way we developed the variation that causes sickle cell anemia.
We were able to look at one particular gene that is responsible for a protein on the red blood cell. And this particular protein is interesting because it's also the same protein that the malaria parasite uses to gain entry into the red blood cell. So that's important because the study showed that there was about a 40% increase in the risk of HIV infection that was attributable to having this change that was brought about by adaptation to malaria. So it's easy to understand how the African population over thousands of years, with millions of deaths per year due to this disease, adapts. Darwin said that survival favors not the strong but the adaptable. What is ironic here is that this adaptation to escape the carnage of malaria led to an increased susceptibility, perhaps, to HIV.
Several thousand people participated in this study. Some had HIV, others did not. All were members of the United States Air Force who volunteered to participate in medical research.
So by having a population like that and being the military, they are people of all races. They're a cross-section of America.
In spite of behavior or circumstance, some people are simply more susceptible to contracting HIV than others.
In the days when HIV testing was not available, hemophiliacs who got HIV-tainted blood products, about 10 to 25% of them resisted infection. Similarly, among men or women who engage in risky sexual practices or taking intravenous drugs, not everyone who gets exposed to this virus actually gets infected. So there are two possibilities. One is that the virus that these people get exposed to differs, and the other possibility is that our genetic makeup endows us with certain properties that makes us a little different.
All human beings have the same set of genes. Genetic variations occur when the shape of a particular gene changes in some people, but not others.
Let's assume that this entire thing is one gene. All of us have got this gene, okay? You, me, Dr. Dolan, everybody in this room. But some people have this gene with the cap off, and some don't. This cap represents a small little change, okay? It's these small little changes that occur in people's genes confer other traits in us, like our hair, our skin color, and other kinds of traits. In some cases, those traits are not just normal traits, but traits that can give us disease, like breast cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, like people get heart attacks.
There was a study a few years back that asked the question, why is tuberculosis causing worse outcomes in African Americans than in other European Americans? When you look at the history of the human population, in fact, tuberculosis is an imported disease to Africa. It's really a European disease. And so Europeans had this disease for thousands of years. Africans really were only exposed to tuberculosis with the slave trade when that developed. And that's relatively recent in the great span of human adaptation and evolution. So they hadn't had time to adapt to it. So that's an example of where race or skin color really is a clue for geography. And what continent did your ancestors originate from? And in that continent, what infectious diseases shaped who we are?
Our lifetime is a small speck in the terms of a larger evolution. And there are more microbes in your body, or bacteria or microbes, than you have actual human cells. I don't know if you knew that, but that's a fact. So the interaction between the microbe and the host has been going on for centuries. Your ancestors, my ancestors, didn't die of breast cancer and heart disease. They died, as Dr. Dillon mentioned, of infectious diseases. So, and the nature of these microbes and the host, that means us, differed depending on where the person lived. I mean, if you lived south in the equatorial region, it's not the same as living in Alaska.
Does your finding help scientists find a cure for HIV? Will it help develop a cure, do you think?
We all recognize that science is incremental, and that it's like climbing a mountain, one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. And so myself and my colleagues, we don't get too high when the news is good. We don't get too low when the news is bad. We just keep moving up the mountain.